the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes, part of Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by the Locked On Big Ten Podcast, because there's simply no better place to get all the news on the Big Ten Conference than with Locked On Big Ten and its new host, Nate Dickinson. Follow the Locked On Big Ten Podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your fine podcast. It is Saturday, yes, Saturday, July 31st in the year 2021. And no matter if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast or you're watching us on youtube.com, make sure you subscribe. And I want to say thank you for making this podcast a part of your day. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. You can also follow the podcast on Twitter as well at Locked On Buckeye. Lineup for today, we continue our Buckeye road trip around the NFL. Julian Council, the host of Locked On Panthers, will be with us to talk about Pat Elflein. Tony Wiggins, the host of Locked On Jaguars, will be with us once again to talk about Carlos Hyde. But first, Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Gotta be specific with the time zone because it's not the same for everybody. The NBA draft, the 2021 NBA draft began. And from the ESPN or the ABC, no matter which broadcast you watched, you got to see name after name after name after name after name get called, and a dream truly come true. From Cade Cunningham going to the Detroit Pistons, all the way through the last pick in the NBA draft, there are so many dreams, so many athletes, so many families, so many people that had their lives changed instantly. The possibility of their lives changing as well, not just getting drafted, but potentially having a career that is very lucrative. And it is a way to secure and make sure your family is set for life. Well, there's one Buckeye that had his name possibly be able to be called in the NBA draft. That is Mr. Duane Washington Jr. Around these parts, Jay likes to call him Junior. We had Brandon Simberg from BustingBrackets.com here with us on Thursday, and we got to discuss and hear what kind of prospect Junior is, what Junior brings to the table, what ways he can improve, and where it is that he might land, maybe in the draft, maybe outside of the draft. Will he be a solid NBA player only? Will he be a G League player only? Will he split time between the two? And ultimately, the one thing Brandon Simberg stated so many times is that Junior is a two-way player. Not offense, defense in the NBA, but he's a two-way contract type of guy. From the NBA to the G League, and he got his wish. Well, his wish to be on an NBA team. But what Brandon Simberg predicted, that is what happened. Junior signed a contract, a two-way contract with the Indiana Pacers and the Fort Wayne Mad Ants. There's about a 2-hour drive in between the two. Some of you that are listeners in Ohio that may be on the western border between Indiana and Ohio, you might frequent Fort Wayne quite a bit. Yeah, the Mad Ants, there might be a reason for you to go there because you might want to see Junior play the basketball. Going from Fort Wayne to Indianapolis, yes, it is a new road for some athletes, a new way for people to get paid and to have a chance to play on an NBA team and be a solid piece, a consistent piece on the NBA roster. I think it is a great way for Junior to show that he deserves a shot to permanently be, not none of this two-way contract talk, to permanently be a part of an NBA roster. The Indiana Pacers last season had a sub-500 record, 34-38. They ended up losing their last game against the Washington Wizards in the play-in tournament, 115-142. They were finished the season ninth in the Eastern Conference. Their coach last year, Nate Bjorkgren, was one and done. Yes, Seriously, one and done. Nate Bjorkwin in Indiana, they call him New Nate because old Nate was Nate McMillan, who was out. Old Nate and New Nate. Well, New Nate is also up out of town. The Pacers, scoring-wise, 6th in the NBA in scoring, 115.3 points per game. Now, opponents' points per game, they're 25th in the league, 115.3. So basically, you're scoring 115.3 and you're giving up 115.3. That's really interesting. Offensive rating for the Pacers, 112.4, 14th out of 30 teams in the association. Defensive rating, 112.4, 13th out of 30 teams in the National Basketball Association. Their expected win-loss record from last year was to be 500. They were below that with a new coach. You kind of expect things to be a little weird, a little off, a little odd. But I don't think with the ups and downs, the injuries that the Pacers had last year, nobody expected things to go as bad as he did internally inside of the roster. What does Junior bring to the Indiana Pacers and even the Fort Wayne Mad Ants? He is somebody, and I'm going to do something that Brandon Sipberg mentioned so many times. You know you're going to get his all when he's on the court. You always want to give his all. You know if you need him to score, if he needs to be a big part of the offense, he'll move that ball, he'll swing that thing. But he's called upon, when he is called upon to put the ball in the basket, Junior will do that thing, but at a volume type of rate. 16 points a game, 16.4 points a game this year for the Ohio State Buckeyes, 37.4%, I believe, from downtown. He can fill it up occasionally, but he is a guy that when he's cold, he's cold. When he's hot. We saw those hot moments during the Big Ten Conference Tournament game, Big Ten Conference Tournament. We saw some of those cold moments throughout the regular season. We also saw a leader. We also saw somebody that would change his role, alter his role, to do what's best for the team. When there was an injury, he had to step in. TJ Walker went down. Junior went into more of a ball handling role, and we saw how that thing went for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Your boy Jay is excited for Junior. Your boy Jay is very excited for the future of Junior. And now this young man, Duane Washington Jr. from Sierra Canyon out there in Cali to his 3 years at Ohio State, and now signing a 2-way contract with the Pacers, a dream of his to be on an NBA roster, to play NBA basketball. That'll soon come. That'll soon happen. First up, the Summer League. That's going to be in August. And then in the fall, Junior. I cannot wait to see Junior put on the Indiana Pacers jersey and to represent the Pacers organization and the Ohio State Buckeyes, as he is now the newest member of the Ohio State Buckeye family to be and to join the National Basketball Association. Step away very quickly. When we come back, we will welcome in Julian Council from Locked On Panthers to continue our Buckeye road trip around the NFL. But first, check this out. Did you know that Built Bar has so many delicious flavors? There's literally something for everyone. When you talk to a Built Bar fan, they're definitely passionate about their faves. If you don't know the Built Bar flavors, well, guys, you're definitely missing out. Coconut and cherry barcia and raspberry and mint brownie and double chocolate and salted caramel, strawberry and orange, and cookies and cream. Everybody loves the cookies and cream, even German chocolate. Not only are Built Bar flavors the best tasting, but they're healthy too. Check out these macros. 17 to 18 grams of protein, calories ranging from 130 to 180, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. Built Bar is the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and you will get 15% off your next order. Once again, go to built.com and use that friendly promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off at built.com. And as we continue and roll on, before we bring in Julian Council, I want to remind everyone of some things, or let you know about some things that are to come right here on Locked On Buckeyes. I am doing a special episode tomorrow coming out on Sunday talking about the Quinn Ewers situation. So a what if, some things that are positive about this, maybe a negative, something to make you think, going a little extra with the Quinn Ewers news, because this is new. This is rare and unprecedented if it happened. I'm going to back away and bring in Mr. Julian Council. And joining us now here on Locked On Buckeyes, continuing our Buckeye road trip around the NFL, it is Julian Council, the host of Locked On Panthers. That is the Carolina Panthers in the NFL and the NFC South. Julian, how you doing today?
Doing all right, Jay. You talking about you guys going around the NFL. Like, y'all got way too many Buckeyes be doing this for every player, man. Like, come on. Ohio State's loaded, but I'm doing well, man. Happy to be on. Happy to be talking to these Buckeyes. A lot going on in college football world. Let's talk some NFL.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of going on in college football. A lot of Buckeyes in the NFL have hit a few teams. NFC South want to go to the AFC South here very, very soon. But a new member of the Carolina Panthers is Pat Elflein. I'm going to ask you specifically right up front, what were your initial thoughts when you heard that the Panthers have signed Pat Elflein?
Why? I mean, I was confused, man. I'm not going to lie to you. Pat Elflein, I remember back at the Ohio State University, Remington Trophy Award winner for top center in the country, was a good player. Goes to the Vikings, didn't really load to the hype there as a third-round pick, gets injured. They decide to let him go. A local Charlotte native here, and Garrett Bradbury takes his spot as a first-round center at NC State. He goes to the Jets last year, tries to protect Sam Darnold. Doesn't really do a great job of it. The Jets don't want him back. He's a free agent. And for whatever reason, the Carolina Panthers prioritized him and Cameron Erving to be their first two signings in free agency. And it was a little confusing to me. Like, I know the head coach, Matt Rule, here in Carolina, talked about how he wanted to get younger on the offensive line. So I get it. You get a guy who's younger, who can not only play center, but potentially, not only play guard, but potentially could move inside to play center next year after Matt Paradis leaves. So the positional makes sense to me. But, if you follow Pro Football Focus and the football nerds out there, they're really not a huge fan of Pat Elflein. I saw a tweet that said the last 3 seasons, there's been 151 offensive linemen who have played over 1,500 snaps quick, who have played over 1,500 snaps. Yes, 847th. 147th out of 151 dudes in the last 3 years in the NFL on the offensive 1,500 snaps. That leads me to wonder why on earth, when your offensive line is bad, would you go get a player who legitimately is one of the worst offensive linemen in the last 3 years who have played that many snaps in the NFL? So no offense to Pat Elflein. I'm sure he's a nice guy and everything. Just from what I've seen him do in the NFL and what the analytics say, it does not make a lot of sense for him to be a Carolina Panther and to likely be the starter at left guard when week 1 kicks off against the New York Jets.
147 of 151.
Yeah.
That's atrocious. That's embarrassing.
Yes.
That's
not good.
Really a big sign about the organization, about why I understand your hesitancy now more, and I understand why you view him the way that you do because of the way that he has played. And I wonder how in the world is this all going to work out with the offensive line, that you bring in a guy that's struggled, didn't really do much in New York. Minnesota got rid of him very, very quickly. And now he's there in Carolina. Is he going to start? I know you put a priority on him, but does he start 5 games and then get benched? Does he start all 17 games? Like, I don't understand why a team, from what you're telling me, from the way that he's played, I personally don't understand why a team would put a priority on a guy that's like that by the stats and by the way that he's played. But if you're going to put him as a starter, you're basically saying our quarterback might be on his back more than he is on his feet.
Yeah, I don't know. It's baffling to me. I'm trying to figure it out all off season. It's not just like they signed him. It was like that was their first move, was Pat Elflein. And Cam Erving's like, what? And by the way, at those rankings, like Cam Erving's 151. So you got legitimately 2 of the worst offensive linemen of the last 3 years. And they're supposed to be your starting left tackle and left guard, respectively. Like, Pat Elflein will start at left guard. And I hope for his sake, being on team 3, having somewhat of continuity of Sam Darnold, playing the offensive line coach, Matt Rule, who's been an offensive line coach in NFL as assistant O-line coach of the Giants. I'm hoping that for his sake, like, things will work out here. The team obviously likes him because they would not have signed him right away if they did not appreciate what he could potentially do here in Carolina. I do see a scenario where, yeah, he starts all 17 games if he's healthy. And then after they move on from Matt Paradis to current center, that he slides over and plays center. And then hopefully hopefully is the main thing. Hope's not a plan, but hopefully he will be the starting center for the Carolina Panthers in 2022. That's the best case scenario. The most likely scenario is that he continues to be the same Pat Elflein that he was in Minneapolis and in New York, I guess technically New Jersey in the Meadowlands, and he's probably not a Carolina Panther come 2022, but we'll see. The contract, I always look at the money. The money always says basically what the team likes and thinks they're going to do. The money says they're going to start on left guard. Will he be here in 2022? That is the big question mark. It's up to him. And I wish it was up to the Panthers. I've never brought him in. But, hey, you got to fill the roster some way. And there's not that many guys available out there that have better experience. And they didn't want to put any rookie guards that they drafted to start out the season. At least that's what I would do. But we will see.
Is it possible, last question for you, is it possible that Sam Darnold advocated for Pat Elflein to go from New York to Carolina?
No, because Pat Elflein was already in the roster before Sam Darnold even got traded for. So
okay.
I'm sure he was happy to see a guy he knew in the building, but they already had Robbie Anderson, who was his wide receiver back when he was the Jets. So no, and the funny thing too is like when they traded for Sam Darnold, I was listening to Sirius XM NFL Radio, and they had Pat Elflein on the show with them. I think it was like Brady Quinn and Charlie Weiss, who were hosting the radio show. And they're like, yeah, so tell us about Sam Darnold, Pat Elflein. Just like, I just thought it was funny. Like, that was the first guy that they called because, hey, he was his offensive lineman last year. Didn't do a great job of protecting him. Didn't give up any sacks, but gave him a ton of pressures and graded out super poorly by Pro Football Focus. Now, it's not the gospel. It's not the end-all, be-all, but there's a reason he's on his third team in the National Football League. Again, I hope it works out for Pat Elflein and also for the Buckeye brand. Not great that your boy is not playing up to snuff after, what he did back in college, helping y'all win a national championship.
Yeah, man. Last but not least, do you have any other comments you want to leave? I know you said a lot about him. Buckeye fans might not like that. There's a possibility of him playing better this year. I just don't know. Do you have any last comments about Pat Elflein you want to leave Buckeye fans?
I'm happy to have him here, honestly. Everything I've read about him, he seems like a nice guy, and I want to see all these dudes succeed because it doesn't make my job any fun to go up here and talk about how bad the offensive line is. It's the one thing that I've been wanting to be good here in Carolina for the last couple of seasons. Cam Newton no longer here, in large part because of how poorly the offensive line performed while he was starting quarterback. So please, I am begging Pat Elflein to figure it out and be a good player here. And if he can be the center of the future for Carolina past the season, that's a super important position to get figured out. And already having continuity, having protected Sam Darnold, or at least attempted to protect Sam Darnold last year, the New York Jets, I like that about Buckeye fans. I'm not a hater. I had to bring out the PFF stats because I can't just show up here and say I don't like the signing without any background. I had some background on him. I hope he plays well this year. If he doesn't, he won't be here in 2022. And you'll be having this conversation with another Locked On NFL host next season.
This is true. If you could, Julian, let everyone know where they can connect with you on Twitter and also where they can catch your show as well.
Yeah, send all the hate at Julian Council on Twitter. That's at Julian Council on Twitter. Like City Council, that's spell my last name. And you can check out the podcast, Locked On Panthers, exactly where you find Locked On Buckeyes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Odyssey, whatever podcast platform you use, you can find us there. So please rate, review, subscribe. 5 stars only. Don't be a hater. If you're going to be a hater, don't leave any review, but at least subscribe to the podcast, okay? And then, you can hate listen if you need to. But go Bucks.
Julian Council, this has been fun. I appreciate the honesty and you providing some great insight to Pat Elflein and what's possible for him in the upcoming season. Thank you for coming on Locked On Buckeyes. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. OH.
I-O. And joining us once again here on Locked On Buckeyes, he was with us yesterday. He's with us once again. It is Tony Wiggins, the host of Locked On Jaguars. Tony, how you doing, man?
I'm chilling like a villain, man, enjoying this Florida weather. I hope y'all got some of this good sunshine, too.
Oh, yeah, we got some up here in the Midwest. It's here. I hope it stays because fall camp for Ohio State is going to be starting August the 3rd, and I hope they get some good weather, not rain the entire time. I know down there in Florida, and the Jaguars, going to be starting mini camp here very, very soon. And Carlos Hyde, someone that Buckeye fans loved when he was at Ohio State, 1,500 rushing yards his final year at Ohio State with 15 rushing touchdowns. he's been around for a while, been around a few teams. 1 year he played for 2 teams. And this is a new journey, a new team, new head coach, new staff. And I sure hope things work and fit with Carlos Hyde down in Jacksonville.
Yeah, and one of those teams that he played for, when you said he played for 2 teams in 1 year, it was Jacksonville. He was Leonard Fournette's backup for half of the season a couple of years ago. I do think it's a new staff, but it's not quite that new. It's an old staff with him. We were talking about this earlier. Played at Ohio State under Urban Meyer. Was drafted by Trent Baalke, who's the GM right now in Jacksonville in San Francisco. Then played for Darrell Bevell when Darrell Bevell was in Seattle, and now Darrell Bevell is the offensive coordinator here in the field. So now you have these 3 degrees of familiarity with Carlos Hyde, and I think it's important for people to know that James Robinson is the starter. They drafted Travis Etienne in the first round this year to be a little bit of a mix. To give them a little bit of run and pass. But before that, they hit free agency because they probably didn't know if they were going to be able to get to ETN. They took Carlos Hyde, and I think it's important to talk about what it is to have a veteran like that with a rookie quarterback, especially in pass protection. You really, really need a guy that understands all of those blitzes, who knows the guy that needs to be picked up. So I think it was really, really a no-brainer early that they got Hyde because of the familiarity and the understanding that he knows the work protocol and he knows the workflow of Urban Meyer and his offense.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the whole rookie quarterback situation, rookie NFL head coach situation. That never crossed my mind. But as you say it, it really does assist and really makes a whole lot more sense as you hit the pass blocking, the passing scheme, that quarterback behind him and Trevor Lawrence knows there's a guy back there, one, that's been around for a while, seen a few systems, been a coach by a few guys, but also 2, he knows how to block in the NFL. And when you put that 3 with his former college coach, Urban Meyer, was there, it seems like a win-win, not just for Carlos Hyde and Urban Meyer, also for Trevor Lawrence.
It is a win for Trevor Lawrence because just think about it. James Robinson's a second-year player. ETN is a rookie. So there's nothing wrong with having a bunch of young players because that means you have a bunch of young talent. But also you need a guy like him in that room. You need a guy that knows these younger players how to work, how to be a professional, how to study film, how to translate from what you do from the film room to the practice field, and then how to take all of that in preparation, even probably your diet, getting things in your body that's going to help you not cramp up in this heat down here in Jacksonville. But more importantly, he's also a guy that can tap Trevor Lawrence when they're in the shotgun and say, hey, you see that over there? There's a hot read coming to your left. You need to watch out for it because he's been around and he's seen it. And I think it comes down to trust on all of those multiple levels, from the offense coordinator to the head coach and to the GM. This is a guy that they're all familiar with, that they've had on their teams at one point or another. So they understand and they trust him around their rookie quarterback, and they're going to trust him on the field probably in late in the games when it's time to try to seal victories, because you can't replace the veteran leadership.
How do you assess the play of Carlos Hyde when he first got down there to Jacksonville? What kind of player did you initially think they were getting? And as you go into camp, what do you think they're getting now?
The previous administration had this thing, and I don't mind it. And what it is they wanted everyone to complement each other. So if Leonard Fournette was out, you'd have a guy who could run the things that Leonard Fournette did and could do it without you changing the offense. And now that makes a ton of sense, right? They didn't really have a change of pace guy. So Carlos, when he was here, was on a bad team, and things probably didn't go well. And then teams, players and people were like, they gave up a draft pick for him in the middle of the season because their backup guy got hurt. So it didn't make as much sense. Then he leaves and he plays well. He plays extremely well when he leaves. And so sometimes you have to understand that it's the situation that you put a guy in. It's not necessarily him. So by him coming back, I think the fans here were understanding of the fact that, okay, we got somebody that's going to know how to use him and utilize him. And he's going to be able to do some of the things that he did when he left here and before he got here, as opposed to his last stay here. And that's why he came back to, because normally you wouldn't see a player go back to a team where he didn't really have a lot of success. This is a totally different outfit now. None of the people here are people that were here before. None of the stuff they ran before is stuff that they're going to run here now. So I think it was a good selling point that Urban says, hey, you need to come down here with us because we're going to take care of you.
One more connection. We talk about how Carlos Hyde can assist Trevor Lawrence. What about that connection between the rookie running back you mentioned that they drafted, Travis Etienne, and Carlos Hyde? What can you expect, or Buckeye fans expect, say Hyde on the field, Hyde off the field. How can Hyde be a leader on and off the field for Travis Etienne?
I think that comes down to Urban being different. And what I mean by coming from the college game. I think because you saw him have both of those guys on his team and he still drafted Travis Etienne with the first-round pick, his value system is a little bit different from people that have been in the NFL for a long time where they don't necessarily value running backs that way. I think he wanted to improve that room. Too many times in the past, you saw the backup running backs and the backup to the backup. They were just special teams guys, a guy who could block on a kickoff return. And it was almost as if the previous administration thought, well, if we get to that deep, we're screwed anyway. But that's not the way that they do this. Every single roster spot on this team is important for Urban Meyer. That's the college approach. The college approach is you need that we go to your second or third running back, but you don't get a whole drop off. You get the same production, and we're going to be threats. And Carlos Hyde is definitely a threat. He's a pro's pro. He's going to affect those other guys because, like I said earlier, he's going to teach them how to workflow. He's going to teach them how to transfer things from the practice field. From the film room to the practice field, and then from both of those to game day on Sundays. And I think he's going to be a refreshing addition to this ball club.
Yes, sir. I'm right there with you, Tony. Once again, just like yesterday, let everyone know where they can catch you on Twitter and also where they can catch your show as well.
It's Shot Talking Wig on Twitter, and my show is Locked On Jaguars. It's a daily show, Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, because it's your team every day. And then on Wednesday with James Rapine on the Locked On NFL show, where it's a national show, we give you the perspective from around the entire National Football.
And that's a wrap on today's show. I want to thank Julian Council from Locked On Panthers and Mr. Tony Wiggins from Locked On Jaguars for joining us and continuing our Buckeye road trip around the NFL. Remember, tomorrow on Sunday, a special episode full of Quinn Ewers news and just talking about the news that came out and just some things to think about moving forward. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at JStevens07. You can also follow the podcast on Twitter as well at Locked On Buckeye. It's Saturday. Enjoy your weekend. We'll be back tomorrow to continue this trend, continue to talk about the Quinn Ewers news and maybe bring up something that may not have crossed your mind.